On Sunday afternoon at the Emirates, Arsenal put in one of the most significant performances of Mikel Arteta's reign, and in my view, the best out-of-possession performance we have ever seen under Mikel Arteta. If you disagree, go argue with your garden gnome. But the big talking point on the negative side of things, not helped by some over-the-top commentary from Gary Neville, was the goalkeeper.
He was nervy, shaky, honestly, never seen a keeper like it.
Complaints about his long distribution, moaning about his short distribution, and general discontent, with multiple camera shots of the player he's displaced. But I just don't see it that way. And when you really look into it, I think we have a framing issue here more than anything. But more on that later. First, I want to ask you a question. Who would you say is the best goalkeeper in the world with the ball at their feet? If you don't like Raya, where are we trying to get to? You personally might have a different answer, but I asked my audience on X, and overwhelmingly the response was Edison. Seeing as you can't reply because this is the past, let's go with him. Then, I want to ask you another question. Just long distribution-wise, according to SofaScore, what do you think the best goalkeeper with the ball at their feet in the world's numbers would be so far this season for these three long distribution categories? Accurate passes into the opposition half, accurate long balls, and accurate chipped passes, all as a percentage in the league. I'm going to tell you. Obviously. Accurate passes into the opposition half, 39%, accurate long balls, 50%, and accurate chipped passes, 52%. Shocked? I was. 1 in 2 long passes, essentially, are accurate, sometimes less. We have this idea of Edison as this perfect goalkeeper, but a lot of his passes are missed. I'm not digging him out, by the way, because these are incredible numbers at the top level. I'm just making the point that even the very best in the world aren't perfect because you can't be at the top level. There's a few other keepers we need to look at to contextualize those numbers though. I'm only going to be looking at the Premier League as it's hard to judge across leagues, and I'm only looking at players either with big reputations or at big clubs. Vicario, for example, is neither. Alisson is widely considered the best goalkeeper in the world, overall, I'd say, or I feel that way anyway. And Onana has a huge reputation for playing with the ball at his feet, though things haven't exactly started well. And I'm putting Martinez in because he won the World Cup, and Villa are doing well. Onana is at 28%, 33%, and 32%. Martinez is at 32%, 42%, and 50%. And Alisson is at 30%, 36%, and 49%. So Edison is the best in all three categories. It confirms what we already knew. He's a joke with the ball at his feet. Now, you know where this is going. Where does Raya fit into that? 41%, 46%, and 43%. Top for accurate passes into the opposition half, above Edison, second in the group for accurate long balls, and fourth for chipped passes. Sure, he has a smaller sample size, but with the carry-on I've been seeing from some fans, you'd think he's been booting it into row Z, and the numbers just don't tell that story. Put Ramsdale's numbers in, and Raya is above him for some decent metrics for long distribution in every category. Even if you just look at it from an Arsenal perspective, the long distribution just has improved. So then why the complaints on that front? If Raya is objectively improving our long distribution, why are there so many who will scream till they're blue in the face that he's got to improve there? Well, to be honest, I get it. I think I even said a week or so ago on a bonus video for TDK members, check it out, free trial on Patreon, that he needs to improve his long distribution, and I kind of stand by it. I think some of his selections aren't great, and it does feel like there's some passes he plays that just give it straight back to the opposition for no reason, against Spurs in particular. But I've been thinking about this for a while, because I'm a loser, and I think it goes deeper. So, we all want Mikel to be ruthless and get us results, right? But I think, as fans, when he changes out such a popular character as Ramsdale, we unconsciously expect to see a margin of improvement that justifies that emotional wrench we feel. The ruthlessness is accepted if it feels like it's genuinely made us better. And right now, it doesn't feel like much has changed in a very obvious way, so lots of people don't like it. And that, I think, is at least in part down to this. When you're changing out a 46-year-old Petr Cech for Bernd Leno, it's pretty obvious what you're doing, and you see the improvement. When you change out Leno for Ramsdale, you can see the impact it has on our build-up, becoming a more modern team, in air quotes, and you can see the improvement. But that's when our team was coming up from 60, 65 points a season, trying to get in the top 4. We were trying to bridge a much larger gap, 20, 25 points a season. The improvements, and this is all over the pitch, not just for goalkeepers, were obvious because they moved us further up the table and got us better results. But there's only so many positions in a league table. We can't go up 4 positions like we did last season again. You can't have 42 wins a season. There's less room to grow, is my point. Now we're trying to add those final 5 points, swinging 2 or 3 results in our favour. The margin of improvement is far smaller because we're so much closer to the top, and in many ways it's the hardest to close, even if it's the smallest. But that means, I think, when things do change, ostensibly to improve us, seeing how the needle has changed is a lot harder. Arteta hasn't chosen Raya like this. You. He's evidently thought about why. We may not see why, as obviously as previously we have done for the reasons mentioned, but we can look for clues in what he says. And yesterday, Mikel said this.
And I think he was excellent. I think the way he dominated his box, the way he came up for crosses and set pieces, the height that he played. He's got big ones, because with the crowd going like this, other players, I've seen it start to kick balls everywhere. And I said to him, you don't do that, make sure you don't do it. And he didn't do it. And at the end, he got rewarded because the team started to play much better the game that we wanted to play. So big compliment to him.
The key word there is bravery. He loves his bravery to keep playing the way Mikel wants him to when the going gets tough. There was a fascinating comment in there about other players kicking the ball everywhere when the crowd gets up. I'm not sure we can directly say that's about Ramsdale in the way that some people are concluding, but I think we can say that that's partly why Raya's in the team, because Mikel thinks he doesn't do that. These are the fine margins that get you over the top as a team and get you picked as an individual. And they're not the obvious margins that fans can easily connect to and understand why their favourite player has been dropped. And that argument is also, in my view, the key to unpacking the Gary Neville comments and the "he looks nervy" thing. I want to show you two situations from Sunday. First one, Raya's had the ball on the floor for about 5 seconds at this point. City have 6 men forward, all responsible for a certain zone or man. Raya isn't just waiting for his post-game cuppa. In this case, he's waiting for a City player to commit a certain action in order for a space to appear. If he played it to someone now, the players are too well spread out to get through them on a consistent basis. He's baiting the press. And finally, Rico Lewis commits. Once Rico commits, you can see the space opens up in behind him. Rice is the spare man, and that's now the target, to get out through there and create overloads up the pitch. Jorginho's movement forces Kovacic in to follow him, and I imagine the idea is to knock it around the corner here to Rice to get out. But City are too good. Kovacic's movement and Rico's positioning means Raya only has one option now, and they've closed off the Rice angle and are advancing quick. So Raya has to go wide, and we're forced long. Second one, identical situation, almost like they're coached to do this, and this isn't just random. Raya waits and waits, Rico creeps forward, and Rice stays back this time, presumably to offer a different passing angle. And finally, Rico commits again. Jorginho and Kovacic move in again, but this time Raya elects to go to Gabriel. Again, Rico committing means the space is created, which is the aim. Gabriel finds Rice, who finds Zinchenko, and we're nearly out through that area, but we're forced back again, and then you get the situation with Alvarez as Raya gets it back. These are the incredibly complex cat and mouse games that we see in top level football. And sometimes it goes wrong, but the benefits far outweigh the pitfalls. And this is what Raya's doing when he's got his foot on the ball. He's waiting for something. And that bravery to wait and assess his options is partly why he's being picked. Sometimes it's a City player committing, sometimes it's an Arsenal player finding space. Maybe he is nervous too, but that's simply not the reason he isn't committing to a pass. I like Gary Neville a lot, but his commentary between 10 and 15 minutes was mental, considering how long he's been in the game. And if a goalkeeper is taking the ball into these zones, it's because his coach is asking him to in order to create spaces elsewhere. In the case with Alvarez, of course, he took it too close, and that's an error, but the principle is there. By the way, I don't think Raya had an amazing game. It was probably a 6 out of 10, but the narrative around him was mental. Arteta himself said to blame him if the goalkeeper looks shaky because he's only doing something he's asked for. Thing is, though, I do get the nerves thing. As much as it annoys me, I do get it. We're nervous and we project it onto the players, and in many ways, we can't help it. I was born in 1997. And honestly, only really properly cared about football when I was younger and then got back into it in about 2018-19. I haven't ever really known the game without this kind of a goalkeeper. But if you've been watching football for your whole life, back from the 70s, 80s, 90s, I fully understand why it might be horrible to watch this kind of play. However, in my view, we have to try and understand what we're watching and be conscious of the framing that we're viewing it through. And part of that is the TV coverage. I'm not criticizing Sky, but they have to make a television program. And in order to do that, they have to make it interesting, understandably. And therefore, they need to drum up narratives. It's not an easily accessible narrative to talk about the brilliance of Arsenal's pressing structure or how White followed Foden inside to stop him dropping into the pockets supported by Jesus. But it is easy to play on fan fears and the energy in the crowd and drum up ideas that our goalkeeper's nervous because he's following instructions. I do wonder what the narrative would have been post-game about Raya if everyone watched it without any commentary, although I am aware that the stadium was nervous. My problem, though, is the narrative genuinely affects the conversation around the club for no reason. It adds doubt where there just doesn't need to be doubt. It takes away from what was an incredible performance on Sunday and gives it a but. Arsenal were great, but. Well done, Arsenal, you got over the line, but. David Raya is not a problem. Not only that, he's only just getting started. If you like The Different Knock and want to see more, you can access our bonus content on Patreon and YouTube memberships for just £3 a month.